want to say hi to everybody. A shout out to my Tuesday night class. This is Pastor Dave, and they've asked me to do a devotional on Mark 2 through Mark chapter 5 for our church. I'm in my wonderful studio here. Actually, this is my car, the only place I can find to have complete silence. So anyway, what I'm going to do is try to do something a little bit different. We will get to Mark 2 through 5, but on this first video, I thought I'd like everybody to know a little bit of background on the Gospel of Mark that you all may not be aware of. First of all, let's talk about the author on this video. The author is a person named John Mark. John was his Hebrew name. Mark was his Roman name. We learn in Acts that John's mother was part of the earliest group of Christians, and that in Colossians 4, that this is Barnabas' cousin. Barnabas was the son of consolation. Keep that in mind for this story. Well, Mark, on the first missionary journey, who wrote this gospel, accompanied Paul on his first missionary journey. But something interesting happened. John, who went with Paul and Barnabas on this journey, suddenly decided to return to Jerusalem. Now, before you think, well, is that a concern? Travel in those days were not easy. You forded rivers. If you go to 2 Corinthians chapter 11, Paul will tell difficulty from robbers, difficulty from the journey. There was no Motel 6. There was nothing. You just traveled over land, and then you took your risks with wild animals, you name it. Guessing that John decided that he wasn't the traveler, and he turned back and he left them. So on the second missionary journey, which is the key verse where I want you to go, is Acts chapter 15. Starting in verse 36, Paul and Barnabas had been a real team of evangelists reaching people. They decide to go on the second missionary journey. And it says, and I'm reading the New American Standard, after some days, Paul said to Barnabas, the word Barnabas means son of consolation. You're going to find out that I believe that the church needs a lot more Barnabases. So Paul says to Barnabas, let's return and visit the brethren in every city in which we proclaim the word of the Lord and see how they're doing. Now, Paul was a real missionary person, and he was tough. Barnabas wanted to take John, called Mark. Now, that's the author of our third gospel here. But Paul, it says, kept insisting that they should not take him along, who had, and notice what it says here, who had deserted them in Pamphylia and had not gone with them to the work. Now, there is a real insight. Paul, self-driving, felt that John Mark was wrong, and he didn't want him with him anymore as a person who had deserted. And there occurred such a sharp disagreement that they separated from one another, and Barnabas took Mark with him and sailed away to Cyprus, but Paul chose Silas and left. And so the great missionary team, Paul and Barnabas, split over what I consider to be a lack of forgiveness on Paul's part. We all deserve another chance, don't we? I believe that the Lord wants his people to be compassionate, loving, gentle, kind, but Paul was not willing. Now remember, Paul's an apostle, but he's not always right, only when he wrote Scripture. Barnabas, the son of consolation, and also this was family, said, let's give him another chance, Paul. That can happen. Let's give him another chance. Paul said, no. Barnabas said, well, I'll take him to Cyprus and you go with Silas. And the team was split. Now, on the surface, that looks bad, but God is working.